A little better. Little background information on myself. My dad was the one that got me into fishing at a young age. We have a cabin up in northern Minnesota that I really love to go to, and that's where I learn all my techniques and really where I started to enjoy fishing. I started to develop an itch to go fishing like all the time. I would ask my dad to go fishing like super early in the morning just to go catch some bass. And as I got older, we started fishing local Tuesday nighters together. They were actually put on by Hanks, and that's where I started to develop my competitive side to fishing. Don't get me wrong, I've always been competitive. I grew up with 3 siblings and played sports my whole life. So the first time I watched the Elite Series, I believe it was the 2021 Bassmaster Classic, where Hank Cherry went back-to-back. And ever since that moment, I wanted to be a part of that and do it myself. So in 8th grade, my buddy and I decided to start a team for ourselves. So with a little bit of help from our parents and my dad, who's the coach now, we got the Cedar Falls fishing team started. Our first tournament we entered was the Iowa Bass Team Championship on Pleasant Creek Lake, and I ended up winning my first high school tournament ever, which is pretty awesome. Are there any? I don't see any young anglers in here. No young kids. That's fine. If you know of any young anglers, if you have any kids, encourage them to join our team if they live in the area or if they live somewhere else with a bass fishing team. Or if you don't have a team in your area, you can talk to me afterwards and I'll let you know how to get one of those started. So this is a bait caster, and this is a Texas rig. So the Texas rig is this bullet weight, and you got the hook underneath, and then you put the bait in. So this bait is extremely versatile. You can fish it around wood, you can fish it around rocks, you can fish it in weeds. You can do a lot of things with it, and this setup has won me a lot of tournaments throughout my high school career. I've won Angler of the Year 3 times in a row. I've qualified for the Bass and MLF National Championships, which have taken me to Lake Hartwell in South Carolina twice, Lake Chickamauga in Tennessee, and I've also had some tournaments in Wisconsin, Missouri, and Oklahoma as well. So you can say that fishing has taken me quite a few places. And some things that I keep important and that are important for every angler in high school to have. First off is your reputation. People see who you are, not only like through your tournament success, but who you are on and off the water. If you're known as a bad person, people won't want to work with you, especially sponsors and coaches. But if you're like a good person, you treat people well, and you respect the sport and other people in it, you'll have more opportunities. And the second thing is your work ethic. If you want to get better, you have to work hard in this sport. That means putting as much time out on the water as you can, learning new techniques and studying. I can't tell you how many times how many hours I've spent looking at maps, just fishing and even casting in my front yard. I know, I think Todd was talking about that earlier, about how silly it sounds to just go cast out in your front yard, but it's so helpful. And since you're not fishing, you're only focused on your casting abilities. So that'll help you improve a lot. That's just one thing that can help you get better. The last thing is your ability to adapt. No 2 days on the water are the exact same. What worked today might not work tomorrow, and what worked yesterday might not work today. So you just have to be able to adapt to those situations, and the more time you spend out on the water, the easier it is to recognize those patterns and be able to create a plan if things aren't going your way. Using those strategies and using those strategies in high school fishing, I've been able to be selected for the Bassmaster All-American for high school, and they take the top 12 in the country in front of a panel of judges and look at not only their tournament success, but who they are on and off the water, just like they talk about with like your reputation. And that's extremely important because it allowed me to be selected for this, and I'm headed down to the Bassmaster Classic in Fort Worth, Texas, and I'll be up on the stage, which, like I talked about earlier, I've always dreamed of. Even though I'm not fishing, I'm still going to be up on there. And yeah, I'm going to talk to you guys about this Texas rig. I've already said how versatile it is. You can use it around logs, you can use it around weeds and rocks. The difference between a Texas rig and a jig is you usually want to use a Texas rig in heavier cover. So jigs are a little easier to snag typically, and since you stick your hook inside the soft plastic, it slides over wood and grass and stuff easier and doesn't get snagged. You can also peg the bullet weight if you don't want to slide up and down. A good thing about not pegging it, especially on wood, is how if you get it over a branch, the bullet weight will go down first and the bait will follow, and it lets the tails or whatever you're using flutter. But if you're fishing like heavy grass and such, you'll want to probably peg it. So when I use a Texas rig, I'm either going to be pitching or flipping. So when people say they're flipping, a lot of the times they're thinking about something else, and there's a big difference between. So pitching is when you take the bait here and you're casting pretty far away, and flipping is when you take a certain amount of line and you pull your line out. And flipping is for when you're like fishing close proximity areas. Say you're targeting some lily pads or some heavy cover that's right in front of you. Maybe you know there's a fish in there. You just want to plop it down right in that little hole that's just poking in between the weeds. So when I'm pitching, I want the bait somewhere around the reel. It can go above, below. It usually just depends on how it is when I pick it up out of the water. Another thing with pitching, you don't just want to like fling it out there. You have to get your wrist like a certain way and then let go. You want to keep your thumb on the spool, because if you don't have your reel like completely dialed in, it's not going to work. You're probably going to backlash. And for flipping, like I said, just reach your arms, your rod all the way up above your head. Let the bait touch the floor, and then pull the line out. And you can just plop it wherever you want and control the line however much you want it to go down. For this setup, both pitching and flipping and using a Texas rig, I'm going to be using a bait caster, usually a high gear ratio, like 7 or 8 gears, and then medium heavy rod, pretty fast tip. You don't want too much bend in the line, because if you're fishing heavy cover, you have to be able to get out of it, especially the lily pads. It can be pretty tough to get it through. And then as far as line goes, I'm going to be using fluorocarbon over monofilament, because it's a little bit stronger and it doesn't float like monofilament. You usually want to use monofilament when you're using a jerkbait or top water. And I use mono or fluoro over braid because, especially when fishing wood, braid will like to cut into the wood if you get out on it, and that's going to end up fraying your line. And fluorocarbon is just a little bit more abrasion resistant, and it also has stretch, which is super important when you're fishing like pretty close to you. You want some stretch in that line so that the fish, you can let the fish do whatever it wants, and instead of forcing it in with braid, and you might pop that hook out. So why you should use a Texas rig is to imitate maybe like a bait fish, like a bluegill, or even a crawfish is a lot of the times what I'll use, especially up on the Mississippi. They eat a lot of crawdads up there, so just pop it. They like to scurry across the bottom, so if you like pop it up like that. And then color-wise for crawdads, you're going to use your oranges and your reds, and when you're imitating bluegill and other things, you're going to want to use green and black and blue, depending on the water clarity. If it's dirtier water, you're going to want to use a black, maybe with some blue. Those are the most visible in murky water. Clear water, you're going to want to go with more natural, and that's going to be your green pumpkin with blue and stuff like that, like stuff that looks like a bluegill or a perch or a crappie, whatever the bass are feeding on, maybe a shad. Yeah, that's all I have. Do any of you have any questions about high school fishing or Texas rig with flipping and pitching? All right, then. Thank you guys for coming out. If you have any questions, I'll be down at the Hank's booth. You can find me on Instagram at more.fishing and YouTube at kmore.fishing. Hope to see you guys out on the water soon.